The warning lights flashed red across Tom Vale's small salvage ship as he drifted through the asteroid field near the outer rim. He had been searching for valuable scrap metal for 3 days without finding anything worth the fuel he burned. His ship, the Wanderer, was old and patched with spare parts, but it was home. Tom stretched his arms and yawned. He was about to give up and head back to the trading post when his communication system crackled to life. A weak signal came through the static. "Help me," a voice whispered. The words were spoken in Galactic Standard, but the accent was strange. "Anyone who can hear this message, please help me." Tom sat up straight. Distress calls this far from civilization usually meant trouble, but they also meant salvage rights. He adjusted his scanner and tried to locate the source of the signal. "This is Tom Vale responding to your distress call," he spoke into his transmitter. "What is your location and status?" No response came back. The signal was too weak. Tom programmed his ship's computer to track the transmission and flew toward the coordinates. After an hour of careful navigation through the asteroids, he found what he was looking for. A massive ship floated dead in space. It was unlike anything Tom had seen before. The hull was made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered its surface in flowing patterns. This was definitely not a human ship. As Tom got closer, he saw the damage. Scorch marks from energy weapons covered the hull. Several sections had been blown open. Around the ship, he counted at least 6 smaller vessels. They were black and angular, built for war. Tom recognized them immediately, Korth Empire attack ships. "Not good," Tom muttered to himself. The Korth Empire was known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty. They conquered worlds and enslaved entire populations. If they were here, someone was in serious trouble. Tom watched the Korth ships for several minutes. They seemed to be docked with the damaged vessel, probably sending boarding parties inside. He should turn around and leave. Getting involved with the Korth Empire was a death sentence for a lone human pilot. But the distress call kept playing in his mind. Someone needed help. Tom powered down his ship's main systems to avoid detection. He used only the minimum power needed to drift closer to the damaged ship. His scanner showed life signs inside both vessels. The Korth soldiers were definitely on board. He found a small docking port on the far side of the silver ship, hidden from the Korth vessels. Tom carefully maneuvered his ship into position and connected his airlock to theirs. The seal held, which meant the ship still had atmosphere. Tom checked his weapon, an old plasma pistol that had seen better days. He also grabbed a tool kit and a portable scanner. If he was going into a war zone, he wanted to be prepared. The airlock opened into a corridor unlike anything on a human ship. The walls curved smoothly and seemed to be made of the same glowing material as the hull. Soft blue lights provided gentle illumination. Everything was designed with flowing lines and organic shapes. Tom heard sounds coming from deeper in the ship, the harsh voices of Korth soldiers and the whine of energy weapons. He moved carefully through the corridors, following his scanner toward the life signs he had detected. The ship's layout was confusing. Corridors branched and curved in ways that seemed random to human logic. Several times Tom had to backtrack when he reached dead ends. But gradually he made progress toward the center of the ship. He found bodies along the way, tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore elegant uniforms and carried weapons that looked more like works of art than tools of war. These must be the ship's crew. All of them were dead. The sounds of fighting grew louder. Tom crept to the edge of a large chamber and peered around the corner. 6 Korth soldiers in black armor were advancing down a wide hallway. Their weapons were raised and they moved in perfect formation. At the far end of the hall, energy blasts came from behind an overturned table. Someone was still fighting, but they were clearly outnumbered. Tom studied the situation. The Korth soldiers were focused on their target. They had not noticed him. The chamber had a high ceiling with several levels connected by ramps. If he could get to the upper level, he might be able to help whoever was still alive. Moving as quietly as possible, Tom found a service ladder hidden behind a decorative panel. The ship's designers had not expected anyone to use it in combat. He climbed up to the second level and worked his way around the chamber until he was directly above the Korth soldiers. The defenders were still firing, but their shots were getting weaker. Tom could see they only had a few seconds before the soldiers reached their position. Tom pulled out his plasma pistol and took aim. The Korth soldiers were wearing armor, but he knew their weak spots. He fired 3 quick shots, hitting 2 soldiers in the neck joints of their armor. They dropped immediately. The remaining 4 soldiers spun around, confused by the attack from above. This gave the defender behind the table a chance to strike. A brilliant blue energy blast hit one of the soldiers in the chest, sending him flying across the room. Tom jumped down from the upper level, landing behind the remaining 3 soldiers. His plasma pistol fired twice more, dropping another soldier. The last 2 turned to face him, but the defender's next shot finished one of them. The final soldier raised his weapon toward Tom, but a blade appeared through his chest. He looked down in surprise, then collapsed. Behind him stood a figure in a torn white robe, holding a weapon that looked like a sword made of pure energy. Tom found himself staring at the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Her hair was silver and fell in waves to her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark blue with points of light like distant stars. But it was not just her appearance that struck him, there was something about her presence that commanded attention and respect. "You saved my life," she said in perfect galactic standard. Her voice was musical and strong despite her obvious exhaustion. "Are you hurt?" Tom asked, noticing the blood on her robes. "Nothing serious," she replied, though she swayed slightly on her feet. "But we must leave immediately. More Korth soldiers will come when these do not report back." "Who are you?" Tom asked as he helped steady her. "I am Queen Nira of the Zephyrian Collective," she said. "And you are human. I have never met one of your kind before." Tom's mouth fell open. A queen. He had just rescued an alien queen from the Korth Empire. "Your Majesty," he started, but she held up her hand. "Just call me Nira. Titles seem less important when someone has just saved your life." "What is your name?" "Tom Vale. I'm a salvage pilot. I heard your distress call." "Tom Vale," she repeated, as if testing the sound. "A good name. Now, can your ship carry 2 people?" "Yes, but barely. It's not built for passengers." "It will have to do. Can you get us to your vessel without being detected?" Tom nodded and led the way back through the corridors. Nira moved with surprising grace despite her injuries. She had grabbed a small bag from behind the overturned table, probably the only possessions she had left. They reached Tom's ship without encountering more soldiers, but Tom's scanner showed Korth ships moving into new positions. They were beginning to search the area systematically. "They will find us soon," Nira said, reading his scanner over his shoulder. Tom sealed the airlock and rushed to his pilot's seat. "Hold on. This is going to be rough." He fired up the engines and pulled away from the Zephyrian ship just as the first Korth patrol came around the hull. The small attack ship immediately opened fire, but Tom was already moving. "They are faster than us," Nira observed, watching the tactical display. "Maybe, but they think like soldiers," Tom replied, sending his ship diving toward the nearby asteroid field. "Soldiers follow patterns. I don't." What happened next would have terrified any military pilot. Tom sent his ship weaving between asteroids at impossible speeds, making turns that should have torn the hull apart. He used the asteroid's gravity fields to slingshot around corners, and he flew through gaps so narrow that Nira closed her eyes. The Korth pilot tried to follow, but his military training worked against him. He approached each obstacle carefully and logically. Tom's random, intuitive flying style was completely unpredictable. After 20 minutes of the most dangerous flying Nira had ever experienced, Tom brought them to a hidden cave inside a large asteroid. He powered down all systems except life support. "We wait here," he said. "They will search for a while, then give up and leave." "How did you learn to fly like that?" Nira asked. Her face was pale from the experience. "I grew up on Earth's colony worlds. Space around those planets is full of debris and old mining equipment. You learn to improvise or you die." They sat in the dark cabin, listening to the sounds of Korth's ship searching the asteroid field. Tom's scanner showed them passing nearby several times, but the cave's natural shielding hid their ship's energy signature. "Tell me about your people," Nira said quietly. "I have heard stories about humans, but I thought most of them were myths." "What kind of stories?" "That humans never give up, even when defeat is certain. That they can adapt to any environment and solve problems in ways no one expects. That they are either the bravest or the most foolish beings in the galaxy." Tom laughed softly. "Maybe both. We tend to do things that seem impossible just because someone said they couldn't be done." "Is that why you rescued me?" "Because it was impossible." Tom thought about it for a moment. "No. I rescued you because it was the right thing to do. Humans have this strange idea that we should help people when they need it, even if we don't know them. Even if it puts you in danger. Especially then." They talked through the night as the Korth ships continued their search. Tom told her about Earth and the human colonies. He described cities that floated on ocean worlds and underground settlements on desert planets. He talked about human music and art and the strange human custom of keeping small animals as companions. Nira told him about the Zephyrian Collective, a peaceful alliance of star systems that valued knowledge and beauty above conquest. She described worlds covered in crystal forests and cities built from living light. She spoke of her people's long lifespans and their patient approach to solving problems. "We plan everything carefully," she said. "We consider all possibilities before acting. It has served us well for thousands of years." "But not this time," Tom pointed out. "No. The Korth Empire attacked without warning. Our careful defenses were useless against their sudden strike. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late." "Your planning isn't wrong," Tom said. "You just need to add some chaos to it. Humans are really good at chaos." Nira smiled. "I am beginning to understand that." By morning, the Korth ships had left the area. Tom's scanner showed clear space in all directions. He powered up his ship and prepared to leave their hiding place. "Where do you want me to take you?" he asked. "The nearest Zephyrian outpost is 3 days from here," Nira said. "But your ship was not designed for long journeys with 2 people. We'll make it work. I've got emergency rations and extra oxygen recyclers." But Tom's ship had other ideas. As they left the asteroid field, several warning lights came on. The damage from their escape had been worse than Tom thought. "Life support is failing," he announced, checking the readings. "And the main engine has a plasma leak. We need to land somewhere safe while I make repairs." Tom found a small moon orbiting a gas giant 2 hours away. It had atmosphere and water, but no intelligent life. They could survive there while he fixed the ship. The landing was rough. Tom's damaged engines could barely slow them down enough to avoid crashing. They hit the surface hard and skidded across a rocky plain before coming to rest near a lake. "Well," Tom said, looking at the damage assessment on his screen. "The good news is we're alive. The bad news is we're going to be here for a while." "How long?" 3 days, maybe 4. I need to rebuild the plasma containment system from scratch." They set up a temporary camp near the lake. Tom's ship had emergency shelters and basic survival gear. It was not comfortable, but it would keep them alive while he worked on repairs. Tom spent the first day tearing apart the damaged engine. The work was complex and required tools he had to build from spare parts. Neera watched him work with fascination. "Your approach to engineering is very different from ours," she observed. "How so?" "We design everything to exact specifications. Every component has a precise function. You seem to be creating solutions as you go." "Human engineering," Tom said, holding up a device he had built from 3 different spare parts. "If it works, it's not stupid." That evening, they sat by a small fire Tom had built from pieces of wreckage. The moon had 2 suns, and the double sunset painted the sky in colors neither of them had seen before. "I owe you my life," Neera said. "My people have customs about such debts." "You don't owe me anything," Tom replied. "I would have done the same for anyone. That is exactly why the debt exists. You asked for nothing in return." They talked late into the night about their different worlds and cultures. Tom played music from his personal collection, human songs that ranged from gentle melodies to energetic rhythms that made Neera laugh with surprise. "Your music is so full of emotion," she said. "Zephyrian music is beautiful, but it is more about harmony and balance. This is different. Humans put their feelings into everything," Tom explained. "We can't help it." On the second day, Tom made good progress on the repairs. Neera helped when she could, learning about human technology as they worked together. She was surprised by how often Tom changed his approach when something did not work as expected. "You are not following any plan," she pointed out. "The plan is to get the engine working," Tom said. "How we get there doesn't matter as long as it works." "But what if you make a mistake? What if your improvised solution creates new problems? Then we fix those too. Humans are really good at fixing mistakes." That second evening, Neera shared stories about her own life. She had become queen young when her parents died in an accident. The responsibility of ruling millions of people across dozens of worlds had shaped every decision she made. "I envy your freedom," she said. "You travel where you want, help who you choose. I must consider the impact of every action on my people's future." "That sounds lonely," Tom said. "It is. Queens are not supposed to have personal desires. We exist to serve our people. That's not living. That's just existing." They looked up at the stars together. The gas giant dominated the sky, its swirling clouds lit by the distant suns. "What do you want?" Tom asked. "Not as a queen, but as a person." "What does Neera want?" She was quiet for a long time. "I want to see the galaxy the way you do. I want to experience the unexpected. I want to understand what it feels like to make decisions based on emotion instead of duty." On the third day, Tom finished the repairs. The engine was not as efficient as before, but it would get them to safety. They would leave the next morning. That final evening felt different. They both knew their time together was ending. After tomorrow, Neera would return to her duties as queen, and Tom would go back to his life as a salvage pilot. "I will never forget these days," Neera said as they watched the double sunset one last time. "You have shown me things about myself that I never knew existed." "You've changed me too," Tom admitted. "I used to think I was just drifting through space, taking whatever jobs I could find. Now I understand that even small actions can change someone's entire life." They sat together under the alien stars, 2 beings from different worlds who had found something unexpected in each other. The night was warm and filled with the gentle sounds of the moon's strange wildlife. "Tomorrow everything goes back to the way it was," Neera said. "Does it have to?" Tom asked. "I am a queen. You are a human pilot. Our worlds are too different. Maybe that's what makes it work." They talked until dawn about possibilities and responsibilities, about duty and desire, about the strange connection that had formed between them during their time on the moon. As the first sun rose over the lake, they both knew that whatever happened next, neither of them would ever be the same. The repairs held during takeoff, and Tom's ship lifted smoothly into space. 3 days later, they reached the Zephyrian outpost. A small fleet of elegant ships waited to escort their queen home. As Nira prepared to transfer to her rescue ship, she turned to Tom one last time. "How do I find you again?" she asked. "You won't need to," Tom said. "I'll find you." But even as he said the words, Tom was already making plans to disappear. 6 months had passed since Tom Vale delivered Queen Nira safely to the Zephyrian outpost. 6 months since he had looked into her star-filled eyes and promised to find her again. 6 months of searching every space station, every trading post, every salvage yard in 3 sectors. Tom Vale had vanished completely. Queen Nira stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Stellar Crown, watching her fleet conduct training exercises in the void. But her mind was not on the elegant formations her ships created or the precise movements of her commanders. She was thinking about a human pilot who had changed everything. "Your Majesty," Admiral Corinne approached with his usual careful politeness. "The war games are complete. Shall I order the fleet to return to base?" Nira nodded absently. The war games had been her idea, something that surprised everyone in her court. For centuries, the Zephyrian military had focused on defensive strategies and careful planning. But recent months had seen a dramatic shift in their approach. "Admiral," Nira said. "What did you think of Captain Zara's performance today?" Admiral Corinne frowned slightly. "She continues to employ those unusual tactics you have been encouraging. Her squadron broke formation 3 times during the exercise. And what were the results?" "She completed her objectives in half the expected time," Corinne admitted reluctantly. "But the methods were highly irregular." "Irregular methods that work are better than regular methods that fail," Nira said, repeating words Tom had once spoken to her. The training exercises were just one of many changes Nira had implemented since her rescue. She had restructured the entire military command, promoting officers who showed creativity and adaptability. Traditional Zephyrian warfare was elegant but predictable. Tom had shown her the power of chaos and improvisation. "Your Majesty," her communications officer called out. "We are receiving a priority message from the intelligence division." "Transfer it to my private chamber," Nira ordered. In her quarters, Nira activated the secure communication system. Director Vex appeared on the screen, his pale blue features serious. "Your Majesty, we have completed another sweep of the Outer Rim sectors. There is still no trace of the human pilot designated Tom Vale." Nira's heart sank, though she tried not to show it. "What about his ship registration?" "The vessel was found abandoned at a scrap yard on Nexus Station 3 weeks after he left you. The owner claimed he purchased it from a human matching Vale's description, but all identifying information had been removed." "And the identity records?" "This is where it becomes interesting, Your Majesty. Our deep investigation has revealed that Tom Vale was not this individual's real name. The identity appears to have been constructed approximately 2 years ago." Nira leaned forward. "You found his real identity?" "We believe so. Cross-referencing his physical description, piloting skills, and the unusual modifications on his ship, we have identified him as Ben Reeves, formerly of Earth Special Forces." The name hit Nira like a physical blow. Ben Reeves. Not Tom Vale. "Tell me everything," she commanded. Director Vex consulted his files. Ben Reeves served with distinction in Earth's military for 8 years. He specialized in rescue operations and deep space reconnaissance. After leaving the military, he operated as an independent contractor in the Outer Rim territories. "What kind of contractor?" "Primarily refugee escort and anti-slavery operations. He helped transport civilians from war zones and conducted raids on illegal slave markets. Quite effective, according to our sources." Nira felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Where is he now?" "That is the concerning part, Your Majesty. 3 weeks ago, Ben Reeves was captured during a raid on a Korth Empire slave facility. He is currently being held on Kortha Prime awaiting public execution." The room seemed to spin around Nira. Tom, Ben, was in the hands of the Korth Empire. The same empire that had tried to kill her. "When is the execution scheduled?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "In 10 days, Your Majesty. The Korth Emperor plans to make it a public spectacle to discourage other resistance activities." 10 days. Nira's mind raced through possibilities. A direct military assault on Kortha Prime would mean war between the Zephyrian Collective and the Korth Empire. Thousands would die. Her advisors would never approve such an action to save one human, no matter how much he had done for their queen. "Director Vex, I want you to gather every piece of information about Kortha Prime's defenses and the execution ceremony. I also need detailed intelligence about the Korth Emperor's personal habits and court protocols. Your Majesty, surely you are not considering a rescue mission. The risks are enormous." "The risks of doing nothing are greater," Nira replied. "Ben Reeves saved my life when he had every reason to ignore my distress call. He asked for nothing in return. Honor demands that I do the same for him. But Your Majesty, even if we could mount a successful rescue, the political implications would be severe. The Council of Ministers will never approve military action against the Korth Empire." Nira smiled, and there was something in that smile that reminded Director Vex of the stories he had heard about human unpredictability. Who said anything about military action? 3 days later, Nira stood before the Council of Ministers in the Great Hall of the Collective's capital world. The 12 senior ministers sat in their traditional circle, their faces grave as they listened to her proposal. "Absolutely not," Minister Talek declared. "Your Majesty, what you suggest is madness. You cannot simply travel to Kortha Prime alone. The Korth Empire still recognizes the ancient galactic laws regarding diplomatic immunity," Nira explained calmly. "I will go as an official representative of the collective." "To rescue a human criminal?" Minister Voss shook her head. "The political damage would be catastrophic. Our people will not understand why their queen risks herself for an alien." "Ben Reeves is not a criminal," Nira said firmly. "He was fighting the Korth Empire's illegal slave trade. If we abandon those who stand against slavery, what does that say about our values?" Minister Dern leaned forward. "Your Majesty, even assuming you could reach Kortha Prime safely, how do you propose to secure this human's release? The Korth Emperor will never simply hand over a prisoner. I will invoke the right of challenge." The council chamber fell completely silent. The right of challenge was an ancient law that predated the Korth Empire by thousands of years. It allowed any being to claim the life of another through single combat, but it had not been used in over a century. "Your Majesty," Minister Talek's voice was barely a whisper. "The Korth Emperor is a trained warrior. You are not." "I have been training," Nira replied. "And I have learned new techniques that the Emperor will not expect." Over the past 6 months, Nira had not only changed her military's tactics. She had also been learning the fighting style that Tom, Ben, had used to rescue her. Human combat techniques were unlike anything in Zephyrian tradition. They emphasized adaptability and unpredictability over formal technique. "The Council cannot approve this action," Minister Voss declared. "Then I go without your approval," Nira said simply. "I am still your queen. Some decisions I must make alone." The journey to Kortha Prime took 4 days in Nira's fastest ship. She traveled with minimal crew and diplomatic credentials that would get her onto the planet's surface. Director Vex had provided detailed intelligence about the execution ceremony and the Emperor's palace. Kortha Prime was a world of black stone and towering spires. The Korth Empire's capital reflected their values, imposing, militaristic, and designed to intimidate visitors. Massive statues of previous emperors lined the approach to the palace, each one holding weapons and standing over defeated enemies. Nira's ship landed at the diplomatic spaceport where her credentials were carefully examined by Korth security forces. The soldiers were suspicious but could find no fault with her documentation. As a reigning queen, she was entitled to diplomatic protection even on enemy territory. She was escorted to the palace by a full honor guard, though Nira suspected they were there more to watch her than to protect her. The palace interior was as intimidating as its exterior, vast halls filled with weapons and battle trophies from conquered worlds. Emperor Vrak received her in his throne room, a massive chamber dominated by a seat carved from a single piece of black stone. The emperor himself was enormous even by Korth standards, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in the ritual scars that marked a career of conquest. "Queen Nira of the Zephyrians," he said in a voice like grinding stone. "What brings royalty to my humble palace?" Nira stood straight, showing no fear despite being surrounded by armed guards. "I come to witness the execution of the human criminal tomorrow." Emperor Vrak laughed, a sound like breaking rocks. "Interesting. I was not aware that Zephyrians enjoyed such spectacles. This particular human attacked my ship and killed several of my guards," Nira lied smoothly. "I wish to see justice done." "Ah, a personal matter then." "Yes, the human has caused considerable trouble. His raids have freed nearly 1,000 slaves over the past 2 years. Tomorrow's execution will send a clear message to others who might consider similar actions." The ceremony was set for the next day in the palace's main courtyard. Thousands of Korth citizens would attend to watch their emperor demonstrate the price of resistance. Ben would be brought out in chains and executed by the emperor's own weapon. That night, Nira lay in her guest quarters and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would either save the man who had changed her life, or die trying. Either way, she would not abandon him the way he could never abandon someone in need. The execution ceremony began at noon. Nira sat in the section reserved for foreign dignitaries, watching as the courtyard filled with cheering crowds. Emperor Vrak appeared on his platform dressed in full ceremonial armor and carrying his ancestral weapon, a massive energy blade that could cut through starship hull plating. Guards brought Ben out in heavy chains. Even from a distance, Nira could see he had been beaten. His clothes were torn and his face was bruised, but he walked with his head up and his shoulders straight. Even facing death, he showed no fear. Emperor Vrak began the traditional speech about the price of defying the empire. He described Ben's crimes in detail, emphasizing the disruption to profitable slave operations. The crowd cheered each accusation. Before the sentence is carried out, the emperor announced, "We follow the ancient laws. If any being wishes to claim this criminal's life through the right of challenge, let them speak now." The courtyard fell silent. This was a formality, no one ever challenged the emperor to single combat. He was too skilled and too powerful. Nira stood up. "I claim the right of challenge," she called out in a voice that carried across the entire courtyard. The silence stretched for several seconds before erupting into chaos. Thousands of Korth citizens shouted in surprise and confusion. The guards on the platform looked to their emperor for orders. Emperor Vrak stared at Nira with something approaching amusement. "You wish to die today as well, little queen?" "I wish to claim the criminal's life for myself," Nira replied, walking down to the courtyard floor. "He has wronged me personally. His death belongs to me." "Very well," the emperor said after a moment. "But know that when I defeat you, both of your lives are forfeit. Guards, bring the queen a weapon." Nira was offered a selection of traditional Korth weapons, but she waved them away. Instead, she drew her own energy blade, the same type she had used to help Ben fight the soldiers on her ship months ago. The combat circle was cleared and the rules explained. Single combat to the death, no mercy, no surrender. The winner would claim not only their opponent's life but all their possessions as well. Emperor Vrak moved to the center of the circle, his massive weapon humming with deadly energy. He was confident and relaxed, facing what he saw as an easy victory over a weak alien queen. "I will make your death quick," he promised. "You have shown courage in coming here." "Thank you for your kindness," Nira replied politely. "I will try to do the same for you." The emperor attacked with overwhelming force, bringing his huge weapon down in an arc that would have split Nira in half. But she was no longer there. Following the lessons Tom had taught her about human unpredictability, she had moved in a direction the Emperor did not expect. For the next few minutes, the combat followed traditional patterns. The Emperor used his superior size and strength to press his attack while Nira avoided his strikes and looked for openings. The crowd cheered for their ruler and shouted insults at the alien queen. But gradually, something changed. Nira stopped fighting like a Zephyrian noble and started fighting like a human pilot who had learned to survive through improvisation and chaos. She used the ceremonial decorations around the combat circle as weapons, throwing sand in the Emperor's face and using the terrain to her advantage. She attacked from impossible angles and retreated when she should have pressed forward. Nothing she did followed proper combat doctrine. Emperor Vrak became frustrated. His opponent should have been defeated easily, but she kept doing things that made no tactical sense. When he adapted to one strategy, she immediately changed to something completely different. The turning point came when Nira deliberately fell down, appearing to be exhausted. The Emperor moved in for the killing blow, raising his weapon high for a devastating strike. Nira rolled between his legs and struck upward with her energy blade, hitting him in the only unarmored spot on his massive body. The Emperor staggered and fell, his weapon flying from his hands. The courtyard fell completely silent as their seemingly invincible ruler lay bleeding on the sand. "Impossible," he whispered. "I learned from someone who taught me that impossible just means no one has done it yet," Nira replied softly. Emperor Vrak died with confusion in his eyes, unable to understand how he had been defeated by such an apparently weak opponent. Nira turned to face the stunned crowd. By law, she had won not only Ben's freedom but also the Emperor's position and possessions. She was now, technically, the ruler of the Korth Empire. "I claim this criminal's life as is my right," she announced in the traditional words. "Guards, release him to my custody." The Korth soldiers were too shocked to disobey. They removed Ben's chains and brought him to Nira's side. He stared at her in amazement. "You came for me," he said quietly. "I told you I would find you again," Nira replied. "Though I admit this was more complicated than expected." As the new emperor, the court's legal advisor announced reluctantly, "You must now take possession of the palace and the empire's territories." Nira looked around at the massive crowd of hostile faces. Ruling the Korth Empire was not something she had planned for. "I hereby dissolve the Korth Empire," she declared. "All conquered worlds are free to govern themselves. All slaves are hereby released. All military forces are disbanded." The legal advisor's face went pale. "Your Majesty, you cannot simply dissolve an empire." "I just did," Nira said. "Anyone who objects is welcome to challenge me to single combat." No one stepped forward. Nira and Ben made their way back to her ship while the Korth capital erupted into chaos behind them. Some celebrated their sudden freedom while others mourned the end of their empire. But no one tried to stop the alien queen who had changed their world in a single afternoon. Once they were safely aboard her ship and heading for Zephyrian space, Ben finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why did you disappear after I delivered you to safety?" "Because I thought our worlds were too different," he admitted. "You're a queen with billions of subjects. I'm just a pilot who fixes things. I didn't think there was a place for me in your life." "You were wrong," Nira said simply. "What happens now?" Ben asked. Nira smiled. "Now I have some announcements to make to my council. First, Earth will become the Zephyrian Collective's newest allied world. Second, I am appointing you as my royal consort and military advisor. Third, we are going to revolutionize how this galaxy thinks about impossible things." "Your council will never approve," Ben said. "They will," Nira replied confidently. "I learned something important from a human pilot. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to do something no one expects." Ben looked out at the stars streaming past as they jumped to hyperspace. "What about us? What do we become?" "We become something new," Nira said, taking his hand. "Something that has never existed before. A partnership between chaos and harmony, between human unpredictability and Zephyrian wisdom. That could either work brilliantly or fail completely. Only one way to find out, Nira said with a smile that was purely human in its mischievous confidence. 3 months later, the first joint human-Zephyrian colony was established on a world at the edge of known space. The settlement became famous throughout the galaxy for its innovative solutions to previously impossible problems. Human engineering combined with Zephyrian artistry created technologies that amazed even the oldest civilizations. Ben Reeves, former salvage pilot, became the most influential military strategist in 3 sectors. His techniques of adaptive combat and tactical improvisation were studied at academies across known space. More importantly, he proved that humans and aliens could work together as equals. Queen Nira transformed from a traditional ruler bound by centuries of custom into a leader who embraced change and possibility. Under her guidance, the Zephyrian collective grew from a defensive alliance into a force for freedom throughout the galaxy. But late at night, when their official duties were done and they sat together watching alien sunsets from the palace gardens, they were simply Nira and Ben, 2 beings from different worlds who had found something impossible and made it real. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Nira asked one evening as they watched the twin moons rise over the capital city. "The salvage work?" Ben considered the question. "Sometimes. There was something peaceful about drifting through space with no one depending on you. And now you have an entire galaxy watching everything you do." "True. But I also have something I never thought was possible." "What's that?" "A home," Ben said, squeezing her hand. "And someone who sees the universe the same way I do." Nira smiled. "Full of impossible things waiting to happen." "Exactly." Below them, the lights of the city sparkled like stars brought down to earth. Above them, the real stars continued their ancient dance across the sky. And somewhere in between, 2 beings who had saved each other planned the next impossible thing they would make possible together. The galaxy would never be the same.